Ladies and gentlemen, you are watching Concert Junkies, Rob and John. Oh, yeah.
And we're live. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Betty. I'm the lead vocalist, front woman for Gold Steps. We're a pop punk band out of Milwaukee.
What does neck deep mean to you?
So Neck Deep is one of I want to call them like the part of the new wave pop punk. So I grew up listening to a lot of the pop punk bands from like the 2000s. So really big into like Fall Out Boy and Motion City Soundtrack. And then I kind of fell off listening to pop punk for a while. And Neck Deep was one of the first bands that I heard that I would kind of consider part of this, like, I guess, mid-wave now, considering how many new pop punk bands there are. But I had never really heard of them until I was on Reddit, and I joined the Pop Punkers subreddit and noticed that their name kept coming up. So I checked them out, and I think at the time it was maybe a year before Life's Not Out to Get You came out.
Okay.
And so I started listening to them and the Story So Far and the Wonder Years a lot. And then when Life's Not Out to Get You came out, it just completely changed. I never thought that I would find an album that I loved from beginning to end so much and that resonated so much with me. So when it came time to to name our current project, we kind of had Gold Steps picked out in the back of our mind as like, this is a song that represents the kind of music that we want to be making. And so when Zach, the lead guitarist for Gold Steps, and I left our old band to start Gold Steps, we were already like, well, I guess this is our time to use that name. We kept it in our back pocket for a while. So luckily we got to it first.
So you started the band in like 2016, correct?
Yep. Yeah. Zach and I had been writing music together in another band before that. And we pretty much left a practice one night and we were all, literally everybody in the band just left. We had a member who was extremely controlling about how he wanted the band to be. And Zach and I had started dating and he didn't like that. I guess he thought we were going to torpedo it. And Gwen Stefani, the whole thing, or Fleetwood Mac, or whatever you want to call it. So we kind of, the rest of the band wasn't really thrilled with the way he was treating the rest of us and kind of acting like the band was only his and treating everyone else like they didn't put the work in. So we all left practice one night, kind of looked at each other and told him like, hey, we're done. Like this isn't working out anymore. And so actually the bassist at the time had joined Gold Steps with us. So the other guitarist left and I guess traveled the world with his wife. But that was kind of how Gold Steps got started. It was literally the death of one band to creating another one.
So you have a few songs that I'm going to bring up. You have a song called Petty. You have a song called Firestarter, Sucker Punch, and the brand newest one, I believe, is Undercover.
Yep. Undercover came out. That's our most recent original song. We did put out a Taylor Swift cover about a month ago, but Undercover is our most recent original song.
We'll get into Blank Space later.
Okay.
I have a few questions about that. So, was Sucker Punch due to the movie, or was it another thought process on that song?
It was totally unrelated, actually. I've actually never seen the movie. I know vaguely that it's about a group of girls who roller derby. Is that right?
I believe so. I believe so. It's been a while since I've
Or
seen
it's
it.
like an action movie or something. So I've never seen it, unfortunately. So Sucker Punch was kind of inspired by my struggles with self-esteem and body dysmorphia. So I have a really big tendency to obsess over things that other people would never notice or think about me. Um, and I likened it to it being like a sucker punch. Like I'm the one taking myself out all the time. I'm the one who is hearing these things and taking myself down. with this like aggressive, like gut punch kind of thing. So that was where the idea for Sucker Punch came from. It's really just how your own perception of yourself and your lack of self-confidence and self-esteem issues can really mess with your head.
Yes, I thought it was about the movie because it's kind of pop punk era kind of film, so I figured it maybe go hand in hand.
No, I mean the previews look badass. I just never got around to seeing it. I'm actually really bad with keeping up with movies. I don't have a very good attention span, and I also tend to fall asleep in movie theaters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So Petty, who's that about?
So I've kind of taken it on as like a little badge of pride for myself because I do think that I can be kind of petty when I'm frustrated with somebody. But the original idea behind petty was about somebody who, when you try to approach them about something that like means something to you, like, hey, I don't like when you do this, or hey, I've noticed this behavior and I think I'm not comfortable with that. And they gaslight you by saying, oh, it's not that big of a deal. You're just being petty. You just don't want me to have fun. You're trying to ruin my day, whatever. So it's about somebody actually gaslighting you and telling you that you're just being a stickler, you're being petty, you're kind of a little crazy. What's happening isn't what's actually happening. It's just how you're perceiving it. So that's kind of where it came from. It's a little more like sarcastic, I guess, than I led it to believe. But I always say it's about myself in a way because I can be kind of petty.
So why did you choose to cover Taylor Swift?
I'm a huge Taylor Swift fan. So I have been listening to her since her Speak Now album came out. I wasn't a really big fan when I was younger. I worked at a pizza place where all of the popular girls in school really, really loved country music. So I would hear Tim McGraw and Love Story play constantly. And so I would get super annoyed by it. And I just kind of chalked her up to some other, typical country girl. It wasn't the kind of music I listened to. And then I was driving with my family down to Florida, and my boyfriend at the time had uploaded her album Speak Now to my iPod. And so I was listening. I remember very distinctly it was the day the world was supposed to end back in like, I don't know if that was like 2011 or something. But I remember driving through the hills of Tennessee and listening to that record and realizing that she was a really great storyteller and had some really, really good lyrics, really catchy songs. So I became obsessed after that. I bought every album of hers after that. And my, I guess, fan girling for her has only gotten greater as she's grown. In the last year, she put out how many albums? You have to admire her work ethic, even if you don't think she's a great vocalist or it's just not your kind of music. She never ever stops working. She is always on. She is always determined and driven. And I think that's really inspiring for someone like me in the music industry, for other women. Obviously, most of us don't have that kind of energy or team that she has, but it is inspiring to watch somebody who went from being kind of an awkward blonde little girl with a guitar go from that to now the mega powerhouse superstar that she is in the pop world. So I find her really inspiring. I think a lot of her lyrics are clever. I think a lot of her lyrics can be cringy too, but I also write a lot of things that in the moment I think sound really cool. And then maybe a few months later, or whenever we start bringing out pieces to start writing, I'll go back and be like, ooh, how did I ever think that was cool at any point? But I think she really just lives in the kind of person that she really is. I think she's really comfortable with who she is and the writer she is. And I think it's really cool that her span of work has gone all the way from these typical little love songs that are, very cliched, I guess, like Romeo and Juliet, the love story song,
Yeah.
to all the way writing something as incredible as woulda, coulda, shoulda, or bigger than the whole sky, or anything off of Evermore. I'm a really big fan. Luckily, most of the band are really huge fans of Taylor Swift as well.
Were you able to go to her tour?
Yes, we were there the first night, opening night in Glendale when Paramore and Gale opened. So that was St. Patrick's Day this year. We drove all the way from Milwaukee to El Paso to pick up a couple of my sisters-in-law. And then from there, we drove all the way over to Glendale just for the concert. We got really lucky. We got tickets that were not crazy. I think we paid $106 each for them for nosebleeds.
I mean that's not horrible.
No, not at all,
That's not
especially not
horrible.
for Paramore too. I mean, I think most of the Paramore tickets I looked at here in Milwaukee were about $100. And that was for them, and I don't remember who their openers were. I think Foles and maybe the Lindas. But I didn't go to that tour because I'd already seen them this year.
So I saw that you was at like one of the last War tours.
Yeah, yep. We played in 2018, only the San Antonio date. I'm trying to remember what happened. Oh, we submitted on Reverb Nation. They had like a submission form for that date on Reverb Nation, and Zach, our guitarist, saw it and just decided to go for it, and we got picked, which was like mind blowing because I think we had done the Ernie Ball like contest a couple of times and never got anywhere with it. So that was really cool. That was definitely a dream of mine as like a kid, was to play Warped Tour. So being able to check that off my bucket list was incredible. We were on tour and had to come back early. We had to cancel a couple of dates in Florida to make it back in time. I remember we drove, I think from North Carolina or something, all the way straight across to San Antonio. And it was like over 20 hours of driving, and we had to do it. We had like one day to get from North Carolina all the way to San Antonio. So we got in super late the night beforehand to Austin, which is where we lived at the time, and then slept for a couple hours, got up, got ready, and headed down there. So it was awesome. I remember we got to meet 4 Year Strong that day, which became important in our life a little bit later.
So what's your feeling that you're clarified as pretty much Paramore?
I mean, it makes sense because a lot of people don't have other bands necessarily to compare to. A lot of people see a woman vocalist, and outside of Paramore, there haven't been too many in our genre that are as well known. So that's probably where a lot of the comparisons come from. We've also gotten compared to Flyleaf, who we actually opened for this year at Summerfest. We've gotten compared to Evanescence, No Doubt. So I think a lot of times, I don't think we sound any way, shape, or form like No Doubt, but I think for some people, when you see a band and you don't know them, your first instinct, or I think a human instinct, is to try to compartmentalize them with something that you're already familiar with. So I think that sometimes when there aren't as many bands that are fronted by women or have women in them, a lot of times people just gravitate towards what they know. And I don't think it's a diss on us. I think it's a compliment, because if they thought we were bad, they probably wouldn't say anything at all. So I mean, I can only assume that it's meant in a flattering way, and it's a way for them to group us in their head to make sense of what they're seeing. Just kind of like when you see, a band that has, spiky hair and, chains and stuff like that, you're probably going to compartmentalize them with a band that you already recognize, that if you hear a band that has horns in it, you're probably going to compare it to another ska band. So I think that's just people trying to make sense of what they're seeing, and I don't take offense to it. I have gotten comments that were definitely meant to be negative and hurtful, but I mean, people are going to be mean. That's on them, not me. So I don't really worry about it much anymore. I mean, now we do Paramore cover sets, and I know that we do a really good job at them. So when people say you sound just like Haley, I take that as a compliment, because we have worked so hard to play those songs well and for me to perform them well. So I think it's a good thing overall. For me, it doesn't bother me.
vocally, is there any song that you wouldn't touch?
Of Paramore's or in
No,
general?
just a general statement of all we all have that one song that we wouldn't even try to attempt.
Uh, I don't think I'll ever sing "I Will Always Love You" by Whitney Houston. At
Okay.
least not publicly. That's not quite my style of singing. So probably nothing by Ariana Grande, even at least not publicly. In my car, everything's on like everything. Nothing's off limits in my car or the shower.
Yeah, nothing's off limits.
I don't know if I'd ever do the national anthem just because it's one of those songs that sounds really simple, like Happy Birthday, until you're actually really trying to perform it. And then all you can think about is how every other time you've heard it performed, somebody screwed it up. So I think there's just like this huge like anxiety around it.
Yeah.
I've gotten really good at singing Happy Birthday, but I don't get as much practice with the national anthem, I guess. But if somebody wants me to do the national anthem at their basketball game or hockey game, or if the Packers want to call me up, I would sing the national anthem for them.
Okay. Have you always been a Packer fan?
Yeah, I mean, ever since I was a little kid, that's all my dad watched. My dad was the kind of guy who would videotape games so that he would watch them in the moment and then he would tape them and watch them later as like something else to just throw on in the background. Or I mean, there was like a Bears Packers Halloween game from the early 90s that we were hanging out one time. I think it was like a holiday, and he was like, anybody want to watch the 92 Bears Packers
Hmm.
game or whatever it was? And so he literally like dug out this VHS tape, and I was like, how does this even still play? But it was kind of a riot seeing all of the old commercials and stuff. But yeah, I mean, that was ingrained. I grew up watching them. I definitely went through my phase where I didn't watch any kind of sports just because I was never home. I was always busy going out with my friends, working. I was at school. But as I really got into the Packers actually once I moved away from Wisconsin, and so I used it as kind of a way to stay in touch with my family and make me feel a little bit closer to home. I like that football is only one day a week as opposed to multiple games a week. I don't think I could do basketball or baseball just because it takes a much bigger time investment and I don't have that much time. But I can spend 3 hours a week on football.
So we're about a week away from Thanksgiving. What are you grateful for?
Ooh, that's a loaded question. I think I'm grateful for a lot. I'm grateful that I grew up in a world where my family was close to me and that my family has always been very, very supportive of me and the things that I do. I think about how often my parents come to see our shows, how often my older brother kind of is like our roadie and does merch for us.
That's pretty
And he
cool.
lets us practice at his house. So I guess I'm most thankful for my family and the fact that I know that they'll always be there for me when I need them the most. So, family.
Okay. So what did you want to be when you were a kid?
I wanted to be a singer. I always did.
Hmm?
I was terrified of people making fun of me. There's an infamous moment in my early singing career. I did karaoke at my cousin's wedding, and it was "My Heart Will Go On" by Celine Dion from the Titanic movie because I was obsessed with Leonardo DiCaprio, and the mic was turned off, so nobody could hear me, and everybody was like laughing because it was a little kid like trying to sing this Celine Dion song, and the mic wasn't on. So I thought they were laughing at me, but they were just kind of laughing at how silly the whole thing was. And I remember being really hurt by that. But I would always do karaoke at like my school parties. I did a lot of Faith Hill and Shania Twain. Um, before I wanted to be a singer, though, I definitely have memories of wishing and wanting to be an ice skater. I was obsessed with Tara Lipinski.
Okay.
And my mom used to watch ice skating programs all the time. I'm terrible at ice skating. I cannot stay balanced, so that was definitely never going to be in the cards for me. But singing, I was singing as soon as I could talk. My parents have all these home movies of me
Hmm.
wandering around the yard singing. I used to wear really frilly dresses. I was really into like very like floofy dresses with like lace and ruffles and stuff, and I would dance around in the yard in my bare feet and my pretty dresses singing just the goofiest little songs. I was a very cool kid, obviously.
What is your dream venue?
Ooh, dream venue. And that's probably changed a lot over the years. Anywhere in the world, or
Yeah.
let's see. I don't know if I have a perfect venue. I think I more have any show that we play where people are excited to see us. I think it's more about the atmosphere than the actual venue. But it would be really cool here to play the Pabst Theater, just because my grandfather, he was a painter and he did the gold leafing. That's all over. It's this beautiful gilded theater, and he did the gold leafing on it.
Oh,
I tap danced there once when I was a little kid, and I remember being so excited because my grandpa had done the gold leafing on it. Um, so I think it would just be, it's kind of a Milwaukee landmark. So I think that would be really fun. I already got to play one of my dream venues this year, playing a main stage at Summerfest. So that was really, really cool. But other than that, I think the Paps that would definitely make me feel really good to play that venue.
since you know how to tap dance, do you think you're going to add that to the stage show?
I don't know if I can add it to the stage show, only because when I tap danced, I used flat shoes to do it. Or like they were like tennis shoes. And on stage, I prefer to wear platform boots that are about 5 or 6 inches high because I like to be tall. So you can't really tap dance in super high platforms. But if you catch me drunk enough after a show, I would probably try if you ask nicely.
All right, fans, ask her on the next show.
I used to be pretty good actually. I remember it was a big deal if they moved you to the front row for performing, and there was a couple of years where I was like in the front, like off to the like center, and that meant that I was one of the better tappers in the class. So I mean, I could probably tap something out for somebody.
What was your most embarrassing moment on stage?
Oh my gosh. So I played we played a show a couple of years ago at this bar called Route 20 in Kenosha, Wisconsin. I think it was near Kenosha or Sturtevant. It's a little bit south of Milwaukee. And I inhaled, um, now because I'm thinking about it, I'm gonna cough. I inhaled and my spit like flew to the back of my throat. And so I just had this awful coughing fit like in the middle of our set. And the headlining band, they were filming for it was, I think, an album release show. And so they had a videographer there who was videotaping. And so there's this like part in one of our songs where I just like turned to the back and I'm like literally just having this awful coughing attack. And when I start coughing, my throat will close up and then I sneeze, which doesn't really make any sense, but like it's almost like having like an allergy attack. Like your throat just is like, hey, we're gonna close up and then you can't breathe, and then good luck, hope you don't die. And that was exactly what happened. So it took me like I think like half the song to recover. So that was probably my most embarrassing moment on stage.
Have you ever fell off stage?
I haven't fallen off stage. I have tripped over my cord and not like fallen over, but like definitely like, "Ooh, oops, that was fun." I did jump off of a stage one time that was really high and I could not get back up. So somebody had found there was like a bucket somewhere. So somebody gave me this like bucket that I flipped over and then climbed back up. That was really awkward. Now that venue, the stage is like only 6 inches off the ground. They like cut it all down, and I like to think it's, you know, for shorties like me, who if we jump off the stage, at least we can get back up.
Hmm. Do you play any instruments?
Not well enough to do it on stage. I took guitar lessons a long time ago when I was a kid. My parents got me a guitar for Christmas because I begged and begged and begged for it. And I just don't have really great hand-eye coordination. I'm sure if I practiced a lot, it would be a lot better. But most of the time, I'm just writing stuff that I'm like hearing in my head. So being able to plunk it out on a keyboard is fine enough. I usually am writing to something that somebody else like a guitar riff or something. So I know pitches and stuff like that, but I it would be very uncomfortable to watch me play guitar on stage. I can do it well enough to where I'm fine to like write by myself, but you'll never catch me doing any sweet licks or anything like that. If anything, I would hold it and I would strum. I can't sing and play at the same time. Like that's
No.
just not I don't have that level of coordination. I am such an awkward, clumsy person that it would my brain is just too it gets distracted too easily. So either what would happen is I would start focusing on my singing and stop playing, or I would keep playing and forget to come in. So I think I've just decided that I am a better vocalist and performer when I can play to the crowd, and I've got other people who can play instruments around me to make it sound good.
So, what is the weirdest thing that a fan has done so far?
The weirdest thing?
Yeah,
Um,
or inappropriate?
I haven't had anybody super inappropriate. I think that I'm really bad at ending conversations that, to like move on to the next person. So sometimes I feel like I can't stop talking to somebody because it's rude, but at the same time there's like four people, or like a group of people waiting behind them to talk. As far as inappropriate, I mean, people will yell stuff, but I haven't heard anything gross. Maybe it's just kind of the stuff that you just let it roll off your back because getting upset about it's not going to be helpful for anyone. But I've never had anybody, as a performer, I've never had anybody grab anything or throw anything at me. As a concert goer, I've definitely been assaulted, but that was a long, long time ago and back before people would literally get their ass beat for touching a girl in the pit.
Yeah.
So I like to think the scene has come a long way with catching people who are in the pit just trying to grab people. So, but as a performer, people have been pretty respectful so far. I mean, you get comments and stuff like, "Oh my God, you're so hot." But half the time that's coming from like a friend of mine or something. And it's like, babe, I know, like I'm trying to perform. Let me go.
Hmm.
But it's not, nobody's been gross, I guess. Maybe I'm lucky.
So, out of all the songs that you've put out, which one was the most emotional to put out?
I can think of two that were really special to me. So Empty Space, that is one of our, I think, most loved songs by our fans, and I love performing it. I wrote it after my grandfather passed away. My grandmother and him were married for 74 years, almost 75. And
Well,
growing up, they had that kind of quiet love that wasn't super overly affectionate. She took care of him. She was a housewife. She would pack his lunch every morning, make sure that he had his clothes for work. When he would come home at night, she would, greet him with like a little peck and then, make dinner for him. She took care of the house. But it was this really quiet, lovely partnership that you could tell there was this really deep love there. It just wasn't super showy. But I remember he, would, like, this sounds so simple, but he would massage her feet at night with lotion, like a very distinct, like lotion that I can still remember the smell to this day. And I just always thought that was really kind. He went out and worked all day. He was a trucker. And he would come home knowing that she had been, tending to the kids in the garden all day, cleaning the house. And that was how he showed his appreciation and affection towards her. And when he passed away, I'm gonna tear up because
I'm sorry.
it's okay. She didn't know who she was without him, you know? And I always thought that was the kind of love that I wanted to have. Um, and so seeing her lose her other half, I thought about what that would feel like. And so that's what inspired that song was kind of envisioning, you know, if that person one day was gone, what that would feel like to have to pick up and move on. I mean, she had to. She I mean, she said she didn't want to go on anymore, but she lived for a couple more years before she passed away. But she was ready to be with him again. So I think "Empty Space" is probably our most emotional song. The other one is called "As Time Goes By," and that's a little happier song. I wrote that one for my dad. He has probably been the biggest influence on the kind of person that I grew up to be. I have all of his good parts and all of his bad parts. Like I have his temper, I have his passion for music. Um, he is just a really cool guy. He is so open-minded and so adventurous, and I've always kind of been a daddy's girl in that way. Like my dad was there for me during a lot of like moments where you think like a girl would run to her mom, like my first really bad breakup. I remember my dad giving me this really like sage advice about how one of the lyrics in the song is it's better to have loved and lost.
Yeah.
And that was something he told me. I remember he sat with me and let me cry about this stupid boy that broke my heart. And then we watched a movie together, and he told me about how at one time he had dated a girl and he thought she was going to be the one that he married and he ended up with, and he didn't. He ended up marrying my mom. And he told me how years later he ran into that person again, that woman, and he said it was really cool to like be happy for the fact that what they had together was special to him at that time, but they both moved on and married the right people. So when I got married, I didn't have a really good song that really spoke to my dad and the relationship I had with him. So we danced to Frank Sinatra and Green Day instead. Um,
At the
and
same time, was it mixed?
no, no, we danced to "The Way You Look Tonight" and then "Good Riddance" by Green Day. He thought that was funny
Good
because the
Britain.
song's called "Good Riddance."
Yeah.
And he's like, "She's your problem now." But his other choice, he was gonna pick. We were both big fans of Sugar Cult, and so we used to go see
Okay.
Sugar Cult together. And so he was like, "Well, I just thought that playing Daddy's Little Defect for your wedding might not send the right message." So anyways, a couple years after I got married, I had it in my head that I wanted to write a song as a tribute to my dad. Um, and so now I get a kick out of whenever we play it live. Like he's always just like so proud and so excited to hear it. So it's
Cool.
I love that I can write songs about people that are meaningful and make them feel a certain way. I think that was probably one of my proudest moments, was being able to write a song that was so meaningful and spoke to that. I think I owe my mom a song though at some point. I think she might be a little jealous.
So, with your writing process, is it always based on a true story, or things are fabricated?
um Most of the time it's based on something that's real, something that happened to me, or a feeling. Sometimes it's about like a daydream. Undercover is a song that was kind of an imagining, like a daydream of mine. Kind of it was inspired a little bit about my husband, but at the same time, like part of is fabricated. Like we knew each other. We started hanging out as friends first, but I kind of thought of like every once in a while, like we'll be at a party or hanging out with other people, and we have this like way of catching each other's eyes and giving each other a look, and it just kind of sends like chills down your spine. So
Mm.
I imagine what that might be like when you meet someone for the first time and you get kind of that oh my God, like lust at first sight kind of thing. And I'd never written a song like that before. It was definitely a lot more sensual than I've been before. I grew up Catholic and very like guilt, like you don't talk about sex, you don't talk about those kind of things. That's not nice. We don't talk about our bodies. It was very, very much like just kind of unspoken stuff, right? Like, that's not polite. We don't talk about things like that. And as I got older, there's a lot of empowerment in a woman being able to express her desires, both physical and emotional. So I was really proud of being able to write that song. Plus, I think it's a banger. It's a good dancey track. It might not be very typical of what music we normally write, but I think it was really fun to kind of stretch my wings as a writer and try something a little different. But most of the time, everything's real.
I ask this question every episode, so I like hearing different responses to this one. What do you want to leave as your legacy, not musically?
Oh, I hope people liked me. That sounds really like selfish, but I grew up being bullied a lot, and even now sometimes I feel really lonely. I'm so busy working and doing stuff for the band that it's really hard for me to keep up my friendships. But I would hope that people who come across me, for the most part, that they leave thinking of me in a positive light. I can be I can be kind of an obnoxious, difficult person, but I'd like to think that overall I'm kind and I like to make people feel good about themselves. And I would just hope that if people hear someday that I died, that their reaction would be like, she was nice. She was a nice person. And the world was better with her in it than it is without her. But as far as grand legacies, I think the only way I'm ever going to achieve that kind of legacy that I want would be through music and storytelling. Even before I pursued music, I was always a writer, always wrote short stories, loved creative writing. I used to want to be a journalist. I went to school for that. But I think the most impact that my words will always have will be through song.
And here's a fun one. You can pick 3 items. Do you remember, like when we were kids, that I think it was called a time capsule?
Yeah, yeah. You'd like put it inside like a tennis ball thing and bury it somewhere in the backyard.
Yeah. What 3 items would you, from now, say you would, dig up 10 years from now?
Ooh, like stuff from this year or stuff just in general that is
Just
meaningful?
meaningful.
I would probably put my iPod in it, even though I don't listen to it anymore. I would probably put my iPod in there. I would put a bottle of brandy to remind myself of the era that I'm in where I currently really only drink old fashions. And then I would put probably. What kind of dog do you have? Sorry, my brain is like, what?
It's a rat terrier.
Oh, cute. Then I think I would put a ring light, because hopefully by that point we don't do this anymore. We don't constantly have ring lights in our faces and everything isn't on a screen, and hopefully we go back to the real world at some point. But maybe a little reminder of like, oh yeah, wow, remember when we needed to constantly have model lighting with us at all times because God forbid that you look like a heathen on screen. The times we live in.
So what are you going to be working on next? What's for the next year coming?
We're working on our first LP. So we just met on Sunday to run through a bunch of ideas. Actually, part of why I was late to come on here was on my way home. I came up with a song idea and I had to get it out. So I quick ran to my keyboard when I got home. I wrote down the lyrics that I'd been singing to myself on my drive home. And then I plunked out some stuff on the keyboard and I sent like a voice memo of it off quick to Zach so that he could hear it. Just because I like to bounce my crazy ideas off of him because I'm always so excited about it at the first like minute. And then I'll probably go and listen to it after I get off of here and then be like, never mind, just throw that away. Pretend that didn't exist. But we are writing our first LP. We've had 3 EPs and a bunch of singles, and we have 2 singles that will come out next year. So Alan Day from 4 Year Strong, he produced Undercover, so the song that came out in August, the dancey pop song. He produced that with us, and then there were 2 other songs that we worked with him on that will come out in January and March of next year. At least that's currently the plan. And then we're working on writing this LP. I'm really hoping that we get to rejoin forces with one of my favorite people in the entire world, Nick Thompson from Hit the Lights, because he wrote a lot of songs. Pretty much all of That Ain't It, he was a co-writer on. So hopefully we get to join forces with him again. I'm writing, and next year I hope we get to get back out on the road. We stayed close to home this year. To put it bluntly, touring is expensive.
Yes,
and we lost a lot of money in 2022, taking a bunch of time off of work and touring and having bus breakdowns and other issues. And, it's just a tough market right now. So we decided to stay close to home and really focused on our fans in Chicago, Madison, and Milwaukee. But we are dying to get back out on the road. I miss performing every night. That would be my ideal, is to go out on tour, perform every night, be off for a month, go record some more music, go back out on the road. That would be like the dream life for me, as long as I can pay my bills. So hopefully next year I want it all to work in a really nice, symbiotic, cohesive way so that I can continue to afford to spoil my dog.
Nice. So at this time, would you like to let everybody know where they can follow you?
Sure. Everybody can follow us at Gold Steps Music on Instagram, TikTok, X, and Threads. On Facebook, we're still at Gold Steps MKE because somebody else took Gold Steps Music. And when I find that person, I'm going to ask them nicely to let us have it. But for now, we are at Gold Steps Music on everywhere but Facebook, which is Gold Steps MKE. But I know y'all are on TikTok and Instagram and all the other stuff. We do have a Discord. The link to that is in our link tree, which is in the bio of all of our social media. And you can look out for us. We've got 2 Milwaukee shows left for the year. And then we're going to be hopefully back at a city near you sometime in 2024.
One last question.
I know you're still on there.
One last question. Do you have any messages you want to say to your fans?
Yes. For anybody who has taken time out of their day to like a post of ours or interact with a post or listen to our music, come to a show, buy a piece of merch, just know that every single time I see you or you say hi to me or comment on anything, I see that, and it literally makes my little heart burst with joy, because growing up I didn't think anybody would ever care about a thing that comes out of my mouth. And it turns out there's a decent amount of you. And I think that we have some of the kindest, most creative, sweetest people in the entire planet, that I'm very lucky to have them. There are several super fans that I'll call them, that every time I see them, I'm just so excited to give them a hug. Every time I see them comment on one of our posts, I can't wait to get back to them. So just thank you for making me feel like the best version of myself that I've always wanted to be. And thanks for being here. I hope that we're here together for a very long time.
So as we close out, I want to say thank you once again for coming.
Thanks for having me.
This is going to be on Concert Junkies Rob and John Facebook, YouTube, and it's just Concert Rob on Twitch, and probably some will be on TikTok later. It is just Robert M. Rosenthal, and then Concert Junkies Rob and John YouTube. And I'll see you guys on the next one.